into health coaching because you love sharing your knowledge about health and well-being with others? Were you then confused to learn that we don't really do as much teaching and educating as you might like to do? Well, if you're confused about how and when to teach and educate as a health coach, then this video is absolutely for you. I'm going to share today why I believe that confusion is happening and when it's appropriate to educate. And if you stick around until the end, I'm going to walk you step by step through the best practice teaching strategy for health coaches so you will know exactly when and how to share your knowledge with your clients. So, are you ready to get to it? So, I think a lot of the confusion comes because we see many so-called health coaches out there offering health education programs, and they are clearly teaching, or maybe they're sharing tips, advice, and recommendations in their marketing efforts. So we think, well, if they're doing it and calling themselves health coaches, then I should be able to do it too, right? Plus, in your health coach training program, you probably learned a lot of health information, such as nutrition, physical health, lifestyle conditions, exercise, functional medicine, holistic protocols, right? And more. So if you learned all of that knowledge in your training, clearly you should be able to pass that along to your clients, right? So finally, I think the other thing that happens around this confusion is because in your day-to-day life, you are probably seen as the healthy one, the person that everyone comes to for health and wellness advice and recommendations. And you just love sharing resources, podcasts, books, and all the health and wellness information that you've researched and learned over the years through your own interest in these subjects, right? You just love sharing all of that with your friends and family. So you find yourself with all of this amazing health and wellness knowledge, but then you get into coaching and find out that we aren't really educators, right? It's a very small part of our job to teach and educate. And so all of this leaves us feeling really confused when we graduate and when we start our coaching practices. So what is the truth? Do we or do we not teach and educate? Well, I'm sorry to say the answer is not black and white. It really does depend on your training and your scope of practice. And I'll say that since health coaching is an unregulated field, it is like the Wild West out there. We have people calling themselves coaches when they're really teachers, consultants, educators, mentors, or salespeople. So under my scope of practice from the National Board for Health and Wellness Coaching, which I really believe to be the best practice, evidence-based, gold standard in the field of health coaching, well, our scope of practice says, when appropriate, health and wellness coaches may offer evidence-based resources or information from nationally recognized authorities. And I do also recall from my training a stat that says we can educate something like 25 to 30% of the time within our coaching practices. So yes, we can share information, and there is a best practice way to do it in the context of a coaching relationship when it might help our clients make those lasting changes. Because we are behavioral change coaches, right? It's important to understand how that exchange of information with our clients within the context of them making change, right? In our day-to-day life with friends and family, we simply share information and hope that they do something with it. But in the context of a coaching relationship, we do have to be a bit more skillful. So before we get into the how of we share the information, I want to remind you of 3 key coaching principles that are going to help you understand why we share the information in the way that we do that's going to help our clients make lasting change. So the first principle, it's important to really remember that if we just share a ton of information and overwhelm our clients, they likely won't make change. It's not a lack of information that's holding them back from reaching their goals. They likely know what they need to do and they've done their own research, but doing it is the hard part. So just remember, your client likely doesn't need a ton of more information. The second principle, which builds on this, is to really remember that your client is the expert in their own life, right? They come to you with knowledge. They've had previous experiences, and they have a wealth of really relevant information. No one knows them better than they do. So it really won't benefit them for you to share a whole bunch of information that they already have or know, or to give them suggestions of things that they might have already tried or considered. And then the third principle to remember is a coaching principle of collaboration, of partnership. This is a two-way exchange of information. We champion the client's own needs and their knowledge and their autonomy. We'll believe that they are naturally creative, resourceful, and whole, and they have the answers inside of them. And this approach can be really empowering and transformational, as opposed to a one-way exchange of information by simply teaching and educating and telling the client what to do, which can lead to a disengaged, unmotivated, and a frustrated client. Okay, so with all of that as a foundation, let's talk about how to skillfully share information that's going to foster engagement and better outcomes for your clients. So this simple strategy that I'm going to share is a good practice, and it comes from the 3rd edition of Motivational Interviewing, a book by Miller and Rolnick. It's called EPE, Elicit, Provide, Elicit. And this is a really effective teaching strategy in coaching. They've recently come out with the 4th edition of the book, and they've changed the language to ask, offer, ask. So a quick way of remembering this technique is to think about sandwiching the meaty information that you're going to share in between 2 slices of asking. So the first step is to elicit or ask. So you just want to start by eliciting the client's current knowledge and their understanding about a topic. We ask them what they currently know and find out what the gaps are. We ask what they'd like to know, or what they're most interested in learning, or what they're wondering about. And then we move on to the second step, which is provide or offer. And this is where we ask for permission to share some information. And then we simply provide the small piece of information. We fill in the gaps, we clarify a misconception, and we do it in those small amounts. It's not lecturing, it's not teaching or giving an academic lesson. We want to avoid jargon and just present the facts of what we know without bringing our opinions or interpretations, judgments, or biases. It's not prescribing or recommending, it's simply information sharing. And then once you provide that information, the final step is to elicit or ask again. This is an important step to understand your client's feedback, and it involves asking questions to assess their understanding of the information that you shared, to clarify and explore their thoughts. It also helps in co-creating action steps and strategies to align with the client's goals and their preferences. So in this final stage, you might ask, so what are your thoughts? Does this make sense? What else would you like to know? Do you have any questions? What do you think is the next step for you? Or what would you like to do with this information, if anything? So this EPE model, I hope, really helps to clarify when and how we share information with our clients. It's important to understand the difference between how you might share information about health and wellness with your friends and family versus the best practice way of exchanging information with your clients that's going to foster that engagement, empowerment, and those lasting lifestyle changes. So we use the simple 3-step EPE model that really honors that the client is the expert on themselves, and we sandwich the information that we share between those meaty slices of asking and eliciting. So I hope that helps to clarify some of this confusion. I'd love to answer any questions that you may have in the comments below. Thanks so much for tuning in today. See you next time.